Hey guys, Kevin Cage back with another daily cryptocurrency update. Welcome to the channel. Like and subscribe if you like what you see, and let's get right into the information today. So at time of recording this video, we have XRP at 25.5 cents. Obviously, we saw that huge wick down, huge trip down to the downside. It seems like we've been between that 24 to 30 cent range for months now. It's personally exhausting. And again, none of this is financial advice, but at this point, I either want it to go significantly lower so I can get more bang for my buck, or we can finally just start appreciating in price. I know a lot of people in the community have been here for a few years accumulating. And again, history does not always repeat, but it often rhymes. People are predicting that XRP could go as low as 15 cents. Other people are saying it's time, to let the bulls out. And again, every time the masses think they know what's going on, the market tends to do the exact opposite. So I'm simply sitting on the sidelines, hoarding some cash, and kind of getting ready to make the best of the situation here. So, all right, I want to start things off. I want to show this very important thing on TradingView. Now, this is not TA. However, this was a TA, but what I want to do is read this description down below. So this gentleman right here, Don Barafranca, and I'm sorry if I butchered that, he actually sent this to me, told me to check this out, and I do share a lot of the sentiments in this document that I want to read here verbatim for you guys. I feel like it is a must read, and again, none of this is financial advice. It does not mean that I believe it. I am simply sharing this because I think it's worth to hear, and I want to hear in the comments if you agree or disagree. Now, before I get into this, I want to go over one tweet that is very relevant, and it is Darren Moore. He has been a community member for, I believe, at least hopefully more than 2 years at this point, or at least coming up 2 years, if not, maybe significantly longer. And I do want to read this. So right here, XRP Darren, central banks around the globe are creating CBDCs, central bank digital currencies. Yes, this is known. Literally, countries are already adopting this right now. All right, the USA is at a major disadvantage and are behind, or at least they want to give that idea. Now, reserve status is threatened by this. The Fed needs to catch up or look into the private sector. Hint, hint. The private sector would be Ripple in this case. This is tons of speculation for this video, but when I get into reading this description, I want you to pay close attention. Now, this gentleman right here, Tony XRP, I believe he is at least in the corporate world, and right here he says they're all in concert and know exactly what they're doing. US is not behind, just not sharing. And I believe this gentleman might be under some non-disclosure agreements. I forgot what organization, if it was Accenture, but again, that is just speculation. If you don't get excited from this video, guys, I want you to research the research, but I want to share this, and then you guys can look into this as well. You should not take anybody's advice off YouTube, and I'm simply sharing this because I think it is worth being shared. So right here, pretty interesting. This was released, not video, but this chart on November 11th, and he said, short this and buy the bottom. And I really wish I took his advice. I could have improved my position significantly, and we are right around that 29 cent mark, or 28 cent mark, 27 cent mark, and boom. His buy zone anywhere from here all the way down to 7 cents. Now, will we see lower lows? I personally am not sure. I think on-demand liquidity could function perfectly fine even at 15 cents, and I wholeheartedly believe that once we see high-value transfers over the XRP ledger via XRP, that price will not be able to hold the price down. I know Michael Zischek has expressed the same, $200,000 buys will bring the price up in this market because there is not a lot of volume at time, but when it does happen, things are going to kick in, and we will see price appreciation. So without further ado, let's get into this. Right here, Bank of Canada has 0 gold holdings. How can they go to a gold standard? There are many countries in a similar position. This means they all can't individually declare a gold standard for sound money. The US dollar was once backed by gold, but it was too restrictive and failed. When the dollar was no longer backed by gold, the US made a deal with Saudi-led OPEC. Sell oil only in dollars. Made sense at the time because currencies were already pegged to a gold-backed US dollar, so now that the gold backing was dropped, they could still remain pegged because of the need for the US dollars to purchase oil. Being pegged to the USD, or the US dollar, meant that whatever happened to the US economy affects everybody, as we see today with the trade war. Also, since the US dollar was both a sovereign currency and the global reserve, this meant the US also had an advantage over nations. This is not fair. The demand for the US dollar was strong. The US would print money and exchange it for goods from abroad. This also meant the US had total control over the international payment system, SWIFT, and this is the current system in place today, built 40 years ago, pre-internet, pre-digital era, and it needs to be adjusted and updated, and that is why many people believe that either Ripple will replace it, merge, or even SWIFT will somehow adopt the technology or create their own, which they're not really in a position to do so most likely they would team up with a consortium like R3, which can already settle over their Corda settler platform via XRP, which has been literally the only asset named as a settlement mechanism. So it's either XRP or Swift's other product, Swift GPI. They have two choices, and XRP will offer them the most savings and end-to-end transparency as well. There's so many benefits. We've already compared those before. Right here. Since the world traded in US dollars, the US could dictate and bully every other nation. And yes, this does happen today. And I am in the United States, don't get me wrong, but you have to realize and kind of be realistic with this. We're all people. So they could unilaterally sanction foreign nations and prevent them from using the SWIFT payment system. This was allowed for decades because the US was a superpower, the largest economy. No one could challenge the United States. Nations would adhere to sanctions out of fear they too would be restricted from using SWIFT, and this would affect their trade and hurt their economies. Nations like Iraq and Libya, whose leaders tried to sell their oil in euros and gold, were invaded and executed. The message was clear: do not challenge the US dollar, because if they did sell oil for euros and gold, this would have meant the end of US dominance and the end of the SWIFT system. Every nation would then want to trade using different currencies and assets, so you can imagine why the US had to act quick and stop nations from trading in anything but the US dollar. All this went on while China and Russia were building up militarily and economically. China, now being the second largest economy, will be the world's largest economy in a few years. The US imposed numerous sanctions on Russia and other nations. They use their media to portray these nations as the enemy and sell you stories to back up their claims. No nation is perfect, especially the US and its thirst for war and global dominance, but Russia and China today are capable of standing up to the US militarily. This is why they've launched their own World Bank equivalent, the AIIB, and BRICS, as we know. And again, BRICS consists of Brazil, Russia, India, China, and South Africa, some of the world's biggest economies. Now, major global economies, here we go. Just like I've said, Brazil, Russia, India, China, and South Africa are working together. China is also going full steam ahead with their Belt and Road Initiative. They are winning over nations with trade promises while the U.S. invades, threatens with sanctions, and bullies nations into submission. This is threatening the U.S. dollar. This will kill the SWIFT system and the U.S. dollar standard. And again, sorry if you hear my dog barking in the background. This is one of the reasons the U.S. wages trade wars against China. The U.S. is not stupid. They know the U.S. dollar standard cannot go on forever. And again, typically, a reserve currency lasts about 100 years, and we are nearing that timeline. And I'm not saying that XRP will play that role. What I'm saying is that a bridge asset such as XRP has never been needed more. And if it even plays 1% of that role, I think we'll all be extremely happy as investors. So stay conservative, guys. Research this research, but let me continue. They know the world is changing and they must adapt or die, just like many banks and the fintechs are helping them. And remember that governments do not buy or create technology, they adopt it. All right, so right here. But they are proud and a power-hungry nation. They won't want to lose out to China. Some think Trump is more genius who has thought of these trade wars with China by himself. No, look at the bigger picture. Try and see how this is just the U.S. negotiating their way to trade deals before the U.S. dollar standard comes to an end. Trump is just closing the final chapter. The United States understands they will no longer have the U.S. dollar advantage, and this is why they now require trade deals and tariffs, because they now need to be as competitive as any other nation in order to prosper. No more silver spoon. So Trump is just following orders as his predecessors. And again, guys, I'm not believing this per se. I just want to share this and hear your thoughts. If you disagree 100%, that is perfectly fine with me. All right, so what the U.S. needs to do is to try and gain some advantage while they still hold the U.S. dollar and advantage, but time is running out. The US economy is doing poorly and a Great Depression awaits if nothing is done. I personally do not believe a Great Depression is coming. I think it could be a smooth recession and people really wouldn't notice too big of a difference, ideally. Now, a depression, they have no tools to fight and risk sinking the world with it. Remember that the world has their currencies pegged, not stable, but it's pegged to the US dollar. If the US sinks, it's taking the world down with it. What we see today is there are major problems. This is causing the money to flow out of other currencies and into the US dollar and bonds for safety. This is crashing the value of global currencies. This means those nations are experiencing inflations they can't control because to trade they need expensive dollars. They risk further destabilizing the world, which is already in turmoil. The United Nations saw this back in 2008. The United Nations called for a new world currency to replace the US dollar. They understood what was coming. Some say the UN knows what's coming because of what comes next. Some say after the US global domination ends, the world will submit to the UN. This will be the new world order. All nations under one umbrella organization, centralized power. The UN will be the next superpower. Every nation's laws will be decided at the UN. The puppet government structures will remain, but they will be answerable to the UN. This will be another topic for another day. So, what the world has been asking for all of this, while is to be able to trade using whatever currency or asset they wish. Sounds like the interledger protocol would be very ideal in this, especially how it bridges ledgers, and on the XRP ledger as well, you can use any asset you want and create your own stable projects, trading commodities, gold, precious metals, even fiat. Okay? And I don't know any other technologies that allow this, and keep in mind that IOP and the XRP ledger have been around well over 5 years at this point. All right, so right here, this means democratizing the payment systems. This would render SWIFT invalid unless they adopt R3 Corda. I already brought that up. This will eventually make the UN the new bully on the block, and nations will get to decide who not to trade with if they step out of line. Again, centralized power will come to play. Another topic for another day. And obviously with centralized power, somebody remains in control. I personally may not want this to happen, but again, this is how the world works. We'll see what, unravels or unfolds. Maybe they'll create something entirely different and XRP will play no role whatsoever. So keep that in mind. Now, I want to ask you, which company is being called the Swift Killer? Which company has been positioning a digital asset to become a global reserve digital asset? Which company is working with the banks and governments? And again, which company has already been working with the World Bank and the IMF regularly and in pictures with all of them and a lot of the monetary authorities of these central banks? Which company has their tech integrated with the leading banking and payment software providers to allow for a flip the switch ease of access? And they have literally used that vernacular or that verbiage, flip the switch. There are roughly 2,000 cryptos, more so around 4,000, but again, very few are actually legitimate, probably, a couple hundred. And if you said Ripple and XRP, you are dead right. This is no accident or speculation. This is fact. I challenge you to prove me wrong. So again, guys, let me know your thoughts down below, but I'm not done yet. Right here, what does this all mean? It means after hundreds of years of different sovereign currencies dominating, leading to failure after failure. And there are some typos, so it's kind of hard to read. The US dollar will be the last sovereign currency to ever hold the position of a global reserve currency. Do you think the Bank of England's governor, Mark Carney, who also is very bullish on XRP, if you guys haven't noticed, calling for a Libra-like digital currency to replace the US dollar was just some uncalculated talk? Do you think Brad Garlinghouse, CEO of Ripple, meeting with the central bankers in Switzerland was for nothing? XRP is loved by the IMF and the BIS, the Bank of International Settlements, etc. This is no coincidence, even though many of us do think it is. A lot of people that may be Bitcoin maxis think this is pure coincidence. And again, I disagree. And yes, I do own Bitcoin. I believe in crypto as a whole, but the bulk of my portfolio is XRP because to me, it's just a no-brainer. The upside is just too high. Now, Ripple has been captured since 2014. Their goals have been directed by hidden hands. Their team boosted and filled by hidden hands. What you see is just the surface. This is no longer a speculative asset as it were back in 2015 and 2016. Things are clear. the tech Ripple offers and provides cannot be matched by any other today. And yes, they are 7 years ahead of any competitors. Interledger protocol, as I've already talked about, is truly a game changer, and this was meant to be built with XRP. IOP plus XRP is the secret weapon. Now, this allows trade to be conducted using any currency or asset, and it links up the financial world. Now, IOP, as I've said, interledger, it literally can connect all these ledgers to interoperate seamlessly. IOP is like veins to a body, and XRP is its blood. We are entering a brand new world. We won't recognize it when the dust settles. Changes are coming. We have to wait for negotiations to complete. In life, we cannot be certain about much, but I've never been more certain of XRP becoming the world digital reserve asset. Now, I'm not saying this is the case. I just wanted to share this, and I think this is, fairly well written and has some very interesting yet bold ideas. Now, right here, its value may seem very low today, and that's not because the insiders, banks, institutions don't know about it. The biggest players have purchased their shares over the counter OTC, so you and I don't see their moves. It is the 99% who will come flooding in when the word is released. They can keep the value low until negotiations are complete, and Trump will sign an executive order where the UN will make a move first if negotiations take too long. After that, it's just a matter of flipping a switch and everyone can access XRP liquidity without even knowing it. And again, you and I, people like us, we don't need to know how this functions. Customers don't care. We just want cheap payments and fast, and we want to know that they get there instead of losing it over the SWIFT network when many families are wiring money. And sometimes realistically, there's a 6% error rate. So again, guys, this can be something on the back end and simply a global pool of liquidity for the world to always have on-demand liquidity for everything. We're talking high value payments, even high volume micro payments, the future of streaming payments as well. So right here, everything is falling into place. A few years back, we were laughed and mocked at for laying out the plans, but we know even the central bankers are calling for a new world currency to replace the US dollar dominance. There's no stopping this. The die is cast. XRP the standard. Now again, guys, whether XRP plays a central role or not, there's a lot of speculation that because of the superior consensus mechanism on the XRP ledger, that some stablecoins or even fiat or gold could be, and of course securities are being built upon in the stock, their own little stocks are actually being built on the XRP ledger. That would be huge on its own. Obviously, to settle, XRP is the fastest option, and it's simply a matter of time. Now, I get that this is very, very bold to say, but I assume that many of you are already mavericks, and a maverick is an independent thinker. And obviously, a lot of people in crypto typically go against the grain. You think for yourself, and please don't take what I say is, gospel. And I like when you challenge me, but I want it to be in a constructive way. I don't want any stupid comments saying, wow, I can't believe you shared something like this. You're an idiot. I actually want you guys to break it down, say, yes, this is probable. Yes, this is possible, but no. And, actually give me some explanations because I want to learn from you guys as much as you may learn from me. So again, guys, appreciate all your time. Share this video around. You can follow me on Twitter. And again, that's in the bottom right of the screen. And I'll see you in the next video.